Hello everyone, I want to showcase an Arsonist variation of my Howl Infernalist build. I'll do a quick overview of the build itself and then I will go ahead and run a Simulacrum 4 as a lot of people in the comments of my last video said they wanted me to showcase the build in action. So to start with, the gear is mostly the same. The major difference for your gear is going to be on your Howl. You're going to need to get a +1 to all minion skills implicit instead of the +30 spirit implicit. This is because, unlike snipers, which can use dark entries to get an extra gem level, Arsonists don't have access to anything like that, so you're going to have to look elsewhere to get that extra level, and a helmet implicit is where I get it. Start with the core uniques for the build are going to be Trench Timber, Howl, and Fireflower. For Trench Timber and Fireflower, I generally recommend corrupting them yourself. It tends to be cheaper than buying them. However, it depends on the market prices, so you'll have to calculate it yourself, your expected value of buying it and corrupting it yourself versus just buying a already made one outright. So, for example, Fireflowers, you're going to need to get a 20% of the quality of fire, and then you're going to anoint it yourself before you even begin to corrupt them. And then you're going to, both of these have about a 1% chance. This is accounting for the fact that you're going to be using an omen on the Fireflower because of the cost of the item. You are not going to be using an omen on this. Despite that, they are both about similar rates of success at 1%. So keep that in mind. For the Fireflower, you quality it to 20% fire. You anoint I usually recommend either 2-pronged attack or mass hysteria. If I were to make this in the future, I would actually angle for mass hysteria, as I like the attack speed more, and it actually ends up being cheaper than 2-pronged attack. But this is the one I made previously. So when you quality it to 20% of fire modifiers, what will happen is you corrupt it, you get your +5. 20% of +5 is 1, so you add an extra 1 to get a +6. And that's how you get your +6 to all fire skills on your Fireflower. And then you wouldn't really do the same thing with Alpha's Howl because Alpha's Howl is a tier 0 unique. They're very rare. Despite this, since very few people use them, they're not too expensive. For the rest of your build, you're going to want a rare body armor, rare gloves, and then either these unique boots, which provide you an absolute ton of reservation, or if you prefer, you can use rare boots. It's entirely up to preference. Rare boots allow you to get more attributes, allow you to get more resistances, allow you to get more movement speed, and these are strictly just because they allow you to get some minion reservation. So for your boots, your belt and rings, you're going to be Ingenuity and 2 Venters. So for Venters, the good news with Venters is that they will cover pretty much all of your resistances, and you don't even have, and they'll cover most of your rarity as well. If you're really, I even splurged with these. These were pretty expensive. I think about 50D each, and these aren't even like completely perfect. The life roll on this is a little low, the lightning roll on this is a little low, and then on this, obviously, the rarity roll is super low here. The cold rolls don't matter as much on either of these. This is because you get so much cold resistance on your Alpha's Howl, but you still need a little bit. And then because my lightning rolls on these are, or at least on this one, is not the best compared to how high my fire rolls ended up being, you see I have to take a lightning resist on my body armor to make up for it. And that is essentially what your rares are going to be doing. They're going to be covering the attributes and then rarity and the resistances that you don't otherwise have from the rest of your gear. For example, for my gloves, you're going to angle for as much energy shield and evasion as you can, as well as a maximum life. And then you're going to angle for me, for example, I got chaos resistance, dexterity, rarity. This covers my resistances, gets me some chaos resistance, gets me some rarity. Boots for the same thing. If you go rare boots, that's what you're going to be doing with those. And if you you look at this, covered the resistance issues, got a bunch of attributes. Then you want to angle for as much maximum life and as much speed as you can. Maximum life in this build, because you're Infernalist, is essentially 3 things. It's going to be your maximum life, it's going to be spirit, and it's going to be energy shield. So you want to get as much of that as you can. You'll notice too, for the runes, you either want to use an iron rune or a soul, or the reason why you want to use these versus this, you want to look at your spirit breakpoints. So for example, if my spirit was a little lower and I needed like 1 or 2 more spirit, I would be using a soul core for percent life on these instead to boost myself up. That's when you would be using max life over this. You could also just use rarity if you prefer. I have 160 rarity right now. The breakpoint is 150, so after I hit that breakpoint, I'm not super concerned. But I can definitely see where some people would prefer to just pump as much rarity as they can. For the soul core on this, you want to use this one. The reason why is you're trying to convert away some of the dex cost to intelligence, so that you don't have to build as much dexterity up, as all dexterity is doing is enabling you to use these as well as Wind Dancer. So I'll go ahead and go over the tree. For the tree, we start here. We swing up. You start menu side, you take all these minion nodes, you swing up, and you grab this cluster. The first thing you'll notice is that I don't take any of these revive clusters. Here, and I don't take this notable idol either. The reason I don't is that I think that revive is not super useful once you have capped out your minions in terms of survivability. It used to be that with minions, because of the issue where they would die if you walked too far away, and they couldn't even keep up with like base movement speed, you needed minion revive to make sure that they would actually be available to you. Now that that is no longer an issue, they just pop up right on top of you if you get too far away. If you have enough minion resistances, life, things like that, especially on builds like this where you're capping out the level of your minions anyway, they're not going to die. They're very tanky. It's not an issue. You don't need to invest at all in minion revive. So once you take all this, you want to swing up. This is the most important cluster of passives for this build that you're going to be looking at. This is because of the against the time lost jewel, or against the darkness time lost jewel. So I mentioned here that I don't fully cover my chaos resistance with my gear. So the way I make up for that is I get an against the darkness. I get an against the darkness with chaos resistance and spirit. You can see every single one of these small passives gives me chaos resistance, and then every single one of these notable passives gives me spirit. These are very good. Unlike my sniper's build, the physical damage as chaos damage actually does take effect here, because you can't really afford to use brutality on your minions. 70% of their damage is fire, so you actually do get the benefit from that here. They still don't benefit much from crit. This is because their base crit is so low. However, you're still getting the chaos resistance and the spirit, so I still take these. It is the same here. You're using Alpha's Howl. You don't get energy shield on the helmet. Because of this, you just angle for... you still take this despite that, because you're still getting spirit. Like if this just said plus 12, which is essentially what it just says, plus 12 spirit, you would always take that, right? So you take that here, and then you take these as well. This is actually not too bad. Like having a bit of extra stun threshold based on your maximum energy shield ends up being pretty substantial. I can't think of any time in recent memory I've had issues being stun locked or anything like that. And then here you're going to want to be taking these for covering your minion, like this and this cover your minions' chaos resistances, as well as add a bit of extra max life and some regeneration for their life. And then all of these energy shield nodes. You swing over here, grab this. These are some of the more important nodes you're going to be looking at, things like this, things like this, things like this, because outside of minion damage itself, the way you're going to be scaling the damage of your minions is going to be attack speed and spirit. So you want to grab as many attack speed nodes as possible. You swing up here, swing this way, grab all of these energy shield nodes, and then you're going to grab this jewel slot. This is going to be the last upgrade you make for this build. This is going to be the most expensive upgrade you're going to make for this build. This is the +3 prism, I believe. Thankfully, Arsonists versus something like snipers is like half the price, like 100 divines to 145, depending on how the market's looking at the time, versus snipers, which is going to be 200 divines to 250 divines, depending on the time of day, who's selling, market price, etc. So thankfully that's the case, but it's still a lot of money. So you can swing over here. These are something else you're going to be looking at. These are pretty cheap nowadays. They're like without like the big attributes. Like even these weren't that bad. I mean, this one was like 10 divine because it's intelligence, but like this is strength. This was only like 7 divines, I think, and then this was like 3 because this isn't even a +10. It's a +9. But if you just go like say you want these with like a +5 or whatever, and then Grand Spectrum, that's like a divine, maybe 2 divines. It's nothing. So getting 3 of these gives you a ton of extra spirit. So you want to get these on your tree. Swing down here, like I was saying, you get a bunch of increased damage, and then you get attack speed. You'll swing this way, grab these energy shield and evasion nodes. This is not bad. The curse effect means that things like temporal chains, elemental weakness, enfeeble, etc., things like that won't take as much of an effect on you, especially since you will also have sanctified or consecrated ground, which I'll go over later. That means you'll have a pretty low effect of curses on you, which is nice. And then this is the only source of evasion you're going to be getting from your tree in terms of like boosting your base evasion stats, outside of something we'll go over in a minute here. Swing over here. The primary difference you're going to be seeing from this and the sniper build in terms of jewels themselves is actually going to be this. These sapphires, because you're going to be using Flame Wall, because you're going to be using Pain Offering, and you're going to be using Summon Raging Spirits, I actually value taking these, as you get Energy Shield, you get Skill Effect Duration, minion damage, minion attack speed. The reason why you go for these is actually the Skill Effect Duration. This helps a lot with maintaining like all of the separate buffs you're going to have up, without it being like super fucking tedious. This makes it so, like, having these 2 on my tree and something else I'll show you in a minute, makes, like, for example, offering take 10 seconds. It'll last 10 seconds. And this is without persistence on offering. And it's like 12 seconds on flame wall, so it makes it a lot less of a pain in the ass to keep them up. Swing up here under the jewel socket, and this is what I was talking about earlier. You take these 3, some extra skill effect duration. It just makes the build play smoother, and it's like just taking away a lot of the tedium and jank that you would otherwise be dealing with. Swing up here, grab these attributes are very important. Essentially, once you've hit your attribute breakpoints, which are going to be 205 intelligence, 95 dexterity, you're going to push as much strength as possible. At the very least, you need 54, so you can use your scepter. But you have a ton. You're going to be using a ton of supports too, so you might even need more than that. But essentially, once you hit 54, everything past that is just boosting your energy shield, boosting your max life, boosting your spirit. So every extra source of attributes is just a little bit more of a bump in that way. And then you're going to be looking at energy shield here, and then a huge source of all res for your minions. And this is one of the more important jewels in my opinion, because it gives you a ton of evasion. This is because it converts your intelligence. I was just saying, you have 205 intelligence. Usually that would lead to giving you a bunch of mana, but instead you turn that 205 intelligence to 100% increased evasion rating. I think that's very strong. So grab that, grab this, which this will just turn that into that. So then you'll swing over here, grab these 3 energy shield nodes, and get some maximum resistances there. Swing up here. You'll notice these 4. This is for your Arsonists. This is because the bombs themselves, when they explode, they can shotgun. That's when they explode those. There's that radius there. This makes this both good at clearing better as well as dealing more single target, because it'll be more consistent on hitting those shotguns. And then you'll notice I'm level 98 right now. If I somehow manage to get myself to 100, that's actually what I'm going to be aiming for my last nodes. So I'm going to be swinging over here to grab even more area of effect for my minions. You swing here, and then this cluster here is a huge boost in your general minion stats. You get about 75% increased damage from all of these damage nodes. You get a bit more extra maximum life, and then even more elemental resistances. You take this, you take this, you take these 3, and that's capping out your resistances. It's like 75 if you do all that. If you take this one as well, it puts it to 83. I think it's not even 75. It's 78, and then you take this and it goes to 83. But that's not super necessary. They just have higher max risk because this increase it, but just that is fine. You can do either of these. This one just gives you more damage, and this one gives you a bit of extra resistance. It's entirely up to you. But yeah, you just take all this and then one more jewel socket. So you get as many of these jewel sockets as you can, and that's just how the tree fills out. And then for the gems themselves, we'll start out here. Skeletal Warrior. So I don't exactly know how this works mechanically. All I can say for sure is that I have Rattle Scepter. I have two clerics, 2 skeleton warriors. Every time I cast, it'll pick up the clerics or it'll pick up the skeletal warriors. This means if they're still spawning and I need to cast again, it'll pick up the clerics. Right there, pick up the clerics. These guys are back. So you're looping those instead of picking up your actual damage dealing units. This is why I think Rattling Scepter is significantly better than Omen Scepter, especially since Omen Scepter doesn't overlap Eye of Winter anyway, which you will be using, and the build up is so slow that you're not going, if you're at the point where you're using an Omen Scepter, and you're not going to actually get the build up unless you're very, very weak, because you're going to be killing bosses very quickly. This compared to my sniper's build is not as good at high uniques. Say I'm doing the sniper's build, I'd probably kill the tier 4 breach in 1 or 2 seconds. This one might take 6 or 8 seconds to kill the tier 4 breach boss. But even in those cases, an Omen Scepter wouldn't be doing anything versus just casting Eye of Winter. That buff lost the whole fight and then they're dead. So swing over here, and so for skeleton warriors, I recommend Coaling Strike. This is not super important. They just, if they're 5%, or rare uniques, etc., they'll just pop them. If they're even up, but I mean they're probably going to be in the offering anyway. But it's just a little bump, if possible. Maim. These are actually pretty good if they end up hitting them. See, maim enemies. This slows them. That's not super important, but the evasion rating does matter. The attack from your Arsonists counts as an attack, the bombs, so it is influenced by accuracy. This is something I should bring up too. Getting a accuracy note, say if you want to take one of these, or if for whatever reason you go this way here and you take this node instead, so you open this up so you can take this, that'll give them some dex conversion from you. That gives them some of your dex, which amounts to them getting accuracy. Anything like that does matter, because Like I was saying, they count as an attack, and if you get just one or something, you have to POB it. Like go on path of building, see how much accuracy you need for whatever build, depending on your levels, what you're fighting, etc. But like for me, like even getting just a extra source of accuracy, just one, boosts my damage by about 10%. It caps out. Obviously, there's like at a point you're not missing anymore, so you don't need more accuracy. For me, it was just like one extra node, and then it capped out. But because I have accuracy on my scepter, that's where I'm getting that there. Otherwise, getting one of those nodes would probably be worthwhile for me. So, going through again, blind is very similar. Less accuracy on the enemies. You're evasion based, so this just means that they hit something, they reduce this accuracy, you're more likely to dodge it. So that's pretty nice. And then it reduces their evasion rating, and we just went over that. And then this last one is not super important. You can do overpower for some stun buildup. You can do lacerate if you want them to do a bit of damage, some bleed. You can do cold infusion, gives them a bit of damage and gives them the possibility of slowing. They're going to be in your offering most of the time, so it's not super important, but it's something to consider. Your Infernal Hound is going to be magnified effect, strip away fire exposure. That's just self-explanatory. It gives him a huge AoE on his ignite, which will then inflict fire exposure. And then you splinter and demolish it. This only matters for like uniques, like if you're doing big pinnacle bosses or something. 70% of the damage that your skeletal arsonists and your raging spirits do is physical. So this does matter, but I mean obviously it's not going to matter while you're doing like random like maps or even like shitter mobs. Like they're going to die in one shot anyway. So you can even decide to put them on your raging spirits. It's up to you. I prefer, since my raging spirits are actually significant leveled because of the fire flower, I prefer to just actually make them do damage. But it's totally up to you. It's not super significant, as raging spirits aren't like a huge damage dealer anyway. And then if you were to do that, you could do something like make like Searing Flame and then like an extra thing. I don't know, like Mastery or something on him to make him do a little more damage. It's entirely up to you. For Arsonists, this is your core. Thankfully, unlike snipers, you don't have to switch any of these out if you want to do pinnacles. I mean, you don't have to do it on snipers either, but I mean it helps with the damage. So, but I mean for these guys, you're gonna do Martial Tempo, Fleeting Frenzy, Scatter Shot, Fire Infusion, Fire Penetration. You're gonna see on these guys don't like tooltip, DPS wise. It's gonna show like a lot weaker. Tooltip and even POB don't really account for things like shotgunning. They don't account. This is not going to account for things like fire penetration. And then on POB, it won't account for shotgunning, and it doesn't even really acknowledge that you've put on exposures. You have to like manually do it. But I'll admit, even with like all of this, just the anecdotal experience, mentally, like math-wise, it feels like they should even out, but they end up doing like you'll notice it takes a couple seconds more than say like snipers, or obviously like frost mages of the king. I'm doing like single target, and you'll notice it where it just take a little longer to kill pinnacles. But I mean, if you're killing something in like 6 seconds versus killing it in 2, like who cares? I mean the primary thing is that I think we're starting to see now that Arsonists weren't ever as OP as they were really made out to be. They're good. Even now, I really like them. I think now that I've like smoothed out the like firewall sort of loop there, it feels a lot. It feels smooth. It feels good. So actually, even though I know snipers are better, I kind of like just kind of playing Arsonists now. If I'm gonna be honest, after experimenting with it today, but they are definitely that spirit hit to them really hurt. Like compared to compared to snipers and compared to frost mages, which already do more damage than these guys do. They also have like the reduced reservation. Like if the same build with snipers. Even like if I did the exact same thing with like Raging Spirits, Flame Wheel, all of that with snipers, I still have 50 snipers versus having 31 Arsonists. And then the way you play Frost Mage is very different, so it's hard to say how that would play out. But I mean, everyone's seen how fast Frost Mages just kind of annihilate everything. For your Raging Spirits, like I said, since they're getting so much of a benefit from Fire Flower, I like to actually make them do deal damage along with everything else. So I just stick Heft, Minion Mastery, Elemental Focus, Fire Mastery, and Persistence. Elemental Focus just makes them deal a little more fire damage, and then, like I said before, 30% of their damage is physical, so you just boost up some of that fizz. I think it's 30% anyway. If I remember correctly, the numbers are very similar between Arsonists and Raging Spirits. And then Persistence. Between Flame Wall, Offering, and the Raging Spirits, I find Raging Spirits tend to last the least. So putting Persistence on them felt the best between the three, with as much investments and skill duration as I already have. For Pain Offering, Dance Macabre, Font of Mana, Ablation, Life Tap, and Font of Rage. Because you're already running Ablation, I find I'm always, like, whenever I cast Pain Offering, like, I just have the habit now, I press my Life Flask. So just, naturally, you're going to have mana issues anyway. You got rid of all your mana. So you just Life Tap on it, so every time you cast, do your Offering, do your Flask, you get your Guard, you get your cast of Offering basically for free, and that's just every 10 seconds. Cast, there you go. Flame Wall, it's going to be Inspiration, Arcane Surge, Mobility, Fortress, Brutality. This really helps make it so that even though you don't have a whole lot of mana and your Flame Wall is a pretty high level, with the duration and everything, you end up being able to consistently keep it up. You can see here it's lasted this whole time. I'm already back to full mana. That's my only skill I'm casting, unless I have to cast Eye of Winter during a Pinnacle Weekly boss. But as you can see, that's the general core of your skill loop. And then for the outside of that, you do always have to have Brutality. This is because if you don't have Brutality, it ignites, and if it ignites you, you're going to take damage every Fire Flower, so you're just going to kill yourself. So you have to have Brutality. The rest, I mean, probably the mana is pretty necessary, but it's all up to you outside of Brutality. You have to have Brutality. Leaf Slam, this is your movement ability. So since you have really bad movement speed because of these boots, you have to look for other options. There's like Blink and all that. Usually I like Blink with like the rare boot combo I was talking about, where you get movement speed boots and then you're like running super fast and you're blinking around. But this, you put Bludgeon, so when you leap into it, bruising and pushes them away. You put Holy Descent, so you have Consecrated Ground. This makes you and your minions have a bit of life regen. And then you put Jagged Ground, which is a slow wherever you jump. But you're not going to be jumping like say I'm doing simulacrums. I'm not usually jumping while I'm fighting. What I'm doing is using it to traverse. So like while mapping, you can see I can go over obstacles and go over there. And then it looks funky, but you do end up being faster than like base movement speed. Like if I'm playing with people, I think it's partial because you're always able to jump over stuff, but I do notice I tend to outspeed people pretty significantly. Obviously, you're not going to be as fast as like the movement speed blink stuff. You're not going to be as fast as people with like Temporalis. But it's not bad as a movement option. Then you're going to want Wind Dancer. So level 11, the breakpoint requirement there is 95 dex. If you look here, since you have to get 94 for your alpha cell, it kind of slots in pretty naturally. You aim for 95. Then you grab this. I just slot the bullseye, so if like it goes off, it's more likely to hit and then push people away, etc. But you get a ton, like 4 stages when you put 20% quality. That means that with all my rares, with the conversion from that jewel, everything, I end up getting 71% evasion. If you consider like a lot of builds, the trade-off for Trench Timber is you can't use a shield, but this one basically turns your Trench Timber into a shield. Now you have 70% evasion versus like having X amount of block. And then you go to Eye of Winter. The important thing here is going to be Elemental Discharge. Somebody in my comments in my last video actually mentioned this. I appreciate that because originally I had been using Elemental Focus, but now I can put this on my Raging Spirits, which is something they mentioned. But Elemental Discharge, you just put this on so it can't ignite. The reason why you need that is if, like, say you're doing, say you're casting this, and then you press this, that picks up the fire. You can see those little fire bolts that can ignite you, and, you know, like I was saying, that will kill you. And then you want Deceleration Unleash. This just makes applying the critical weakness in one spell very consistent. But as long as you at least have Elemental Discharge, it's not super. The rest is not super necessary. You'll notice too if you corrupt it for, because it's at base level it's got to be 13, but you can get corruption on it for minus levels. The reason why is you don't actually care about the damage, so if you get a minus level, it reduces the mana cost. Something I aimed for there. The clerics, like I was saying with the warriors, you have 2 clerics, 2 warriors, so you can loop your offering on cooldown without affecting your arsonists. The cost of cleric is the cost of 2 clerics is the cost, pretty much exactly the cost of 1 arsonist. So you just take 1 off, put 2 of these on. The jewels themselves don't matter a whole lot, but I mean you just do the generals setup, last cast, meat shield, ingenuity, arcane tempo, and then your last skill is grim feast. Basically gives you double shield, as you can see here. So after going through those, I'll go ahead and show you a example of a Simulacrum 4. This is essentially what I do with this build pretty much all day when I'm playing. Just put on YouTube, put on Twitch, put on like an audiobook or whatever, listen to music, whatever. Just run Sim 4s, get a lot of currency. It's borderline AFK. You don't really, and then you just kind of like blast through it. And just it's a pretty relaxing time. It's how I got to level 98. It's how I got so much currency to make these builds. It's a pretty good, pretty good time, and I'll go ahead and just showcase that now.
Two, I see nothing there, so I'm good.
Alright, so that's an overview of how Sims tend to go with this build. I appreciate you watching. I go ahead and show. You can see 8 out of 8, Sim 4. Thanks for watching.